Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast, the podcast dedicated to simplifying the commercial real estate industry for the masses. Each week, we sit down with industry experts to dissect the many facets of commercial real estate and extract valuable lessons you can apply to your business. Whether you're a new or seasoned business owner or investor, the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast will be your go-to resource for all your commercial real estate needs. Now, here are your hosts, Raphael Collazo and Jeff Walston.
Welcome to the Commercial Real Estate Academy podcast. I'm your host, Raphael Collazo, here with my co-host, Jeff Walston. How's it going, my friend?
It's going great. Business is good. It's Thursday, and everything's going as it should, and getting ready for the holidays at the end of the year, and because it is December after all. So, but what about you, Raphael? How's it going over there?
It's going great. Business has been doing well. I've closed several transactions recently, and I'm just very appreciative of everything I have in life. And also, thank you to all of you guys who continue to tune in every single week to listen to us. We've definitely seen a significant uptick in our downloads per month, and I think that's the big reason for that is because of your guys' engagement and leaving us reviews. So for those of you guys who have left us reviews, we really do appreciate everything that you do. If you guys haven't already, please leave us a review. It really helps. We've seen a significant uptick in our downloads. So definitely, if you're listening to this on an Apple Podcast or Spotify, feel free to leave a 5-star review. If you're watching this on YouTube, again, like and subscribe to the channel because it really helps with the algorithm and make sure that more and more people can hear this message. But really, today we focused on, it was just a great conversation we had with Darren Krakowiak. He's actually located in Melbourne, Australia. So interestingly enough, my mother was born in Melbourne. My grandmother is actually Australian and my grandfather is Italian. So, I've visited Melbourne on several occasions, and he happened to be from there, and he had a really diverse background in commercial real estate. He's worked in the real estate business, both in Australia and also in Korea, where he managed several people and then actually operated within JLL, which is a large brokerage that really operates across the world. So he had some really unique experiences on that front. He also had a lot of experiences pertaining to entrepreneurship. And we talked a little bit about him scaling his business, CRE Success, where he helps really mentor and provide leadership to those in the commercial real estate industry, in particular in Australia and that part of the world as well. And we also talked a lot about, what it takes to be successful in brokerage. What are some of the challenges that he faced as he took the leap into entrepreneurship, and some of the advice that he would give himself if he were able to go back in time and just talk to his younger self about what it takes to be successful in the industry. So really was a super engaging discussion. We connected via LinkedIn, and that's how I actually was able to connect with Darren. And he really did provide a phenomenal amount of insights. And I think you guys will gain a lot of value from this episode. Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, Darren, he went through a journey on his career so far. So I know I am, and Raphael spoke in the podcast, and we're excited to see how his entrepreneurship develops and where it's going to go from here. So I'm excited for everyone to take a listen.
Definitely. No. And if you guys don't know his name now, I really do think that he's going to be a big deal going forward. So definitely you'll want to know him. You'll want to connect him on LinkedIn. And so really without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right into this episode. So welcome, Darren. Excited to see you this fine afternoon. I guess morning for you over all the way in Australia.
Yeah.
8 a.m. on a Friday morning. Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Well, it's a great way to start your day. So that's exciting. And again, we're really excited to have you. Just for those of you guys who are listening, I actually saw Darren via LinkedIn, and I saw his unique background in the brokerage space, and then obviously now as an entrepreneur. And I thought it would be a phenomenal opportunity for us to learn a little bit more about him as an individual, and get some insights from his many years in the commercial real estate industry. So again, we're really excited to see you today, and so let's go ahead and dive in. One thing I wanted to do, and this is what we typically do when we first start with the podcast, is we like to learn a little bit more about the person across the table from us. So if you don't mind, kind of give us a high overview of who you are and what you do.
Sure. Well, my name's Darren Krakowiak. I live in Melbourne, Australia, and I've had over 20 years in commercial real estate. I started my commercial real estate career after completing a Bachelor of Economics, Bachelor of Commerce at university. So I kind of fell into commercial real estate. I didn't study that at university. And after a couple of jobs with some independent domestic advisory firms in the commercial real estate space. I moved to JLL in 2005, and JLL sent me to Korea, Seoul, South Korea in 2007. Mm-hmm. And I spent 12 years living and working in Korea as an expat. With JLL, I ran a few different departments: research, strategic consulting, tenant representation, and office leasing. I moved to CBRE in 2015 and became the country head of their business in Korea. I came home to Melbourne in 2019, was back with JLL. And when I came back to Melbourne, I kind of recognised what I saw as a bit of a problem in the marketplace, which was a lack of resources for people who work in commercial real estate. I saw a lot of professional development resources, speakers, coaches, trainers who are really prominent in the marketplace in this part of the world servicing the residential market. But I didn't really see anyone who I felt was credibly serving the commercial real estate market. Now, I know that in North America, you have a number of prominent commercial real estate coaches who are servicing that market really well. And, I certainly have come across some of their material and they're doing a great job. But the market in North America is so big that a lot of these people don't really have much need to venture outside of North America. So I saw this gap that existed in this part of the world, and I had experience not only here in Australia, but also in Asia. So I saw an opportunity to set up this business, which I did in 2020 called CRE Success. And I've been doing it now for, coming up to nearly 2 years in April next year.
That's super exciting. And that's a really unique experience that you had traveling from where you were in Australia over to Korea, which again, each market's going to be very specific. So could you tell us a little bit? I'm kind of interested to hear about how was that transition, from where you were at in Australia, and now you're in a completely different country. There's a language difference, there's probably different regulations that are completely different. So what was that transition like? It's kind of interesting.
Well, I was 27 years old at the time, so it was fun and exciting for me. And, I had a lot of fun living and working in Korea. So the cultural barriers were obviously quite strong. I would say that Korea is, if you like, hard Asia, not easy Asia. So places like Singapore and Hong Kong, where there is a lot of English spoken, where there is a little bit more, I guess, globalism, if you like, are probably easier markets to go to. They're generally headquarter markets, whereas Korea is more of it's a developed economy, but it's still a frontier economy. It's got very strong national characteristics, and it's different, right? So at the same time, I think that there aren't a lot of commercial real estate professionals from outside of Korea trying to do business in Korea. So you can quickly establish yourself as a go-to person in the market. So once I understood the market and just understood it better than anyone else who was trying to do business who wasn't Korean in that market, then I became a reliable source of knowledge and an expert in the industry in Korean commercial real estate. So look, there were things that I didn't know as well as obviously a Korean person. I didn't speak Korean ever. I know a little bit of Korean. My wife's Korean. My daughter obviously is now half Korean, but I don't do business in Korean. So there was always going to be some gap between what I could do and what a local could do. But my role was really to act as a bridge between the Korean local business customs, the market, the intricacies of the market, the nuances, and helping foreigners to bridge that gap and to understand how they can get outcomes in that market. So yes, there were some challenges, but there were some real inherent advantages that you can get in a market like that. If you go there and you just spend, you open your eyes a little bit and just spend a year there, you're going to be pretty well placed to be that person who can help others find success in the market.
Yeah. And that's a rare mindset. Yeah. So I commend you on that, because I know a lot of people would not feel comfortable just kind of jumping ship and just going into that type of environment. And I'm sure having the backbone that JLL had with such a broad network internationally kind of helped as far as the bridging the gap, like you said. So that's awesome.
I think as well, the fact that I did research when I first got there, that was good because I got to know the market really well. Then after I moved out of research and strategic consulting into tenant representation, I had the grounding of the market knowledge in place. But also when I started doing tenant representation, that was just after the global financial crisis hit. And there were some more senior people who were moved out of their roles. And I was kind of elevated into this role that perhaps I wasn't ready for, but it wasn't a bad time to be cutting your teeth in a revenue generating role because people had very low expectations of how much revenue could be generated. Mm-hmm. So I had that sort of time and space to sort of understand how to, pitch for work and to deliver services in a tenant representation or transaction capability. And I think that really worked in my favor as well.
Definitely.
So you were saying earlier, you're going through college, and I don't know if I missed it there, but I was kind of wanting to know like what actually piqued your interest in commercial real estate instead of like you going towards the residential side. What was there like an aha moment for you, or what was?
Well, Jeff, I would say that real estate was never really on my radar as a profession. And outside of when I was in my final year of university, I had a few graduate interviews at more sort of strategic consulting firms were the ones that I was targeting. And I didn't get those positions, but I did get an offer from a company called JHD, which is Urbis JHD, or now just Urbis in Australia, which is a professional, it's a property economics firm. And the firm, the JHD side, specialized in advising shopping center owners and large format retailers on how they can increase their turnover as a result of the way that they treat their property. So if they expand the mall, for example, or if they build a new store, what's the market share going to be? What's the turnover going to be? So it was the economics grounding that I had from university, but with very much a property focus. So that was my first job. And then I moved on to another position in a valuation firm where I was their research head, who was doing things like forecasting turnover for valuations to plug into their valuation models for office markets. And then I think I went into JLL because by that time I was interested in the idea of working overseas, and I realized I needed to work at a global firm in order to get those opportunities. And I could see that based on my experience in working for some commercial property advisory firms, that was the quickest path for me to get those opportunities. So real estate in itself probably wasn't really ever something that I pursued, but I'm a pretty competitive person. So I like the idea of that competitive spirit that exists in commercial real estate. At school, I was never a great athlete, but I was into debating, and I was always the student representative council and form captain, and I was pretty academic as well. So I was competitive in that sense. And in commercial real estate, there was an opportunity for someone like me to, sort of satisfy my competitive spirit in a way that I was good at and could also help me achieve my goals in terms of getting an opportunity to move overseas, to make some money, to climb the corporate ladder. And I guess now it's also given me the opportunity to move into entrepreneurship, which is, again, something which probably I've wanted to do for a long time, but didn't quite see how I'd be able to do it until recently.
Nice. That's awesome.
Brilliant.
Yeah, that really is. And like you said, I mean, I'm similar to you in that I didn't necessarily decide to go into commercial real estate right off the bat. I have an engineering background. And so I actually was completely different than you. I was in software development and consulting for 5 years before I got into commercial real estate. And there's a common thread amongst people who go into the business, in the commercial real estate business, and have success. And that competitive nature is kind of prevalent in all the people that I've talked to thus far, just through the podcast and through my interactions with people across the nation. And that's the main thing is your competitiveness and wanting to learn and expand and really serve your clients as best as possible. So that's awesome. That's an awesome idea that you shared. So kind of leads us into our next question, which was related to what are some of the most common characteristics that you see in successful real estate agents and brokers?
I've put a lot of thought into this before we've spoken today, because when I launched this business, I thought that I wanted to have a bit of some sort of pillar content that I could release that I would then offer up as a download to start building up my email database. And what I released was a short ebook called The 5 Ps of Commercial Real Estate Success. And it's basically what I've observed as being the attributes that are most common within top performers in commercial real estate. And when I worked in the industry, when I got to more senior positions, sometimes people would say to me, what does it take to be successful? And I had my go-to answer, and there was 4 Ps, but I thought of the 5th P as well once I released this book. And the 5 Ps are passion, persistence, professionalism, positive thinking, and preparation. Did I get that right? Preparation, professionalism, positive thinking, persistence, and passion. Yeah. So they're the 5 Ps, the 5 sort of attributes, if you like. And yeah, in the ebook, I talk about why they matter, and I sort of provide a few little anecdotes from my commercial real estate career as to, why these things are important if you are going to really aspire to be amongst the best of the best in this industry. And I guess, I've been quite fortunate in my career to have access to very senior people in the industry. And, I really tried to sort of stress test this 5 Ps theory and sort of see, did the people who I admired in the industry have these attributes? And yes, they did. Yeah, now there are some other attributes. Not all of them start with P though, so they don't really fit into my 5 Ps book. But those 5 Ps I think were pretty inherent in all the people who I saw who were really, really successful in our industry. So that's my answer to that question.
Oh yeah, no, and that's a great answer. And I think the first one, like you mentioned, passion. Again, anything that you want to be successful in life, I think requires you to have some sort of at least commitment to doing the best you can each and every day. And, if you're competing against someone who's not really passionate about what they're doing, it's pretty easy to outcompete them over a period of time because they're not going to be committed to the 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, 10-year plan because they're going to start running into these obstacles, which are inherent in the commercial real estate industry. You're going to be facing objections on a regular basis. You're going to be, facing turmoil, again, cash flow, during good times, you're doing great. During bad times, it may be a little bit more difficult. And so you won't ride the roller coaster that is that type of career if you don't really have a passion for serving others and making sure that you want to be the best at what you do. So,
funny you say that because passion was the one that wasn't there at the, when I mentioned there was always 4 that I would mention when people would ask me what it takes to be successful. Passion was the one that was missing. And I guess it comes back to what you asked before about, sort of how did I land in this industry? And I guess I never felt that inherent passion for commercial real estate, or I never knew that I did. But for me, it's not passion for buildings or passion about commercial real estate, but it's passion for some of the things that you need to do in order to be successful, whether that's, leadership, whether that's being a competitive spirit. So you can find the passion to be good at what you do without having an inherent passion for what it is that you do, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're not passionate about bricks and mortar per se, but you're passionate about being the best you possibly can be. And
correct.
And I think passion also comes when you're good at something. Like if you suck at something, it's pretty hard to really be passionate about it. I think over time, some people think that there's like some divine inspiration in careers, right? You find the right career for you, and all of a sudden it's going to be smooth sailing and butterflies and unicorns from there. But in reality, what it really comes down to is becoming really excellent at what you do. Because with excellence, now you feel like you're of value to society. And at that point you say, oh, wow, now I feel like I'm contributing in some meaningful way. And so I think there probably is some delineation between the passion of divine inspiration versus just being excellent at what you do and then being really excited about getting back into the saddle every single day. So
love that, Raphael. And I think if you are excellent at what you do, you're unlikely to hate it. So you don't have to love what you do, but I think you need to be good at it in order to excel at it. And if you excel, you're unlikely to dislike it. So yeah, a lot of people say you should love what you do. And I don't know if you can't, not everyone's going to love what they do, but if you're excellent at it and if you can excel at it, I think it's going to make it, to sort of leverage off the negative much more tolerable if it's perhaps not your burning passion in life, if you wanted to be an actor or an NFL player or whatever it is that you really wanted to do when you were a kid, or be a fireman or whatever.
Sure.
Yeah. And speaking of excelling and stuff like that, when you started your brokerage business and stuff and you've been scaling and things like that, what I know, like for everyone, you hit those roadblocks, those challenges. What were some that, just say your top challenges that you faced when you were scaling your business?
Yeah. It's funny, the things that I have faced challenges with since launching this business are similar challenges that I faced when I worked in commercial real estate, but I think I wasn't so aware of what those roadblocks and challenges were for me at the time when I was in commercial real estate, because my career was always going up and up and up, that everything was going fine. So therefore I didn't really stop to reflect on the areas where I needed to improve. But as I've launched a business, which is hard work and a lot harder than I expected. And I've got a lot more respect now for people who run their own business than I used to have. I used to, I've never shared this before. I used to think that when I would have clients who were running these little 1 or 2 person business, I'm like, why would you want to do that when you can, work for a big company? And I can see now my perspective's completely changed, but that's going down a tangent. I guess some things that are challenges. One is perfectionism, right? Wanting everything perfect. You need to understand that if your perfectionism is getting in the way of you taking action, then it's okay to have high standards, but it's not good to procrastinate and to obsess over small details that nobody else cares about except you. I think that's related also to letting go of certain things and being willing to let other people do certain tasks. So I've talked to, it's funny, some of the advice that I give to my clients in my network now are some of the advice that I know that I needed at the time. So I've had this, I had this idea of 2,000 hours, right? So there's 2,000 hours roughly in a year that you work. So if you understand what your annual income is, you can divide that by 2,000 hours and you'll get your rough hourly rate. And if you're doing things that you wouldn't pay someone else that much per hour to do, then you really need to think about, is that something that you can outsource? So, letting go of certain things just because you think that you can do them better than anyone else, maybe you can, but that's not a reason why you should continue to do them. And I guess just being willing to, again, just get support from other people. So I've been much more open to the idea of personal and professional development since starting this business, more idea to the idea of learning and growth, more open to the idea that somebody else has something to teach me than perhaps I was a little bit arrogant before and thought I knew it all. So I think it's been quite almost a humbling experience to start your own business. And perhaps if I'd had a little bit more of that mindset before, then my commercial real estate career, which went really well, may have even been more successful if I perhaps was a little bit more aware of some of those limitations that I've noticed more recently.
For sure, and I'll even echo on the control factor, because again, and I can see this in you too, because you seem like a very driven and competitive person, and so you seem like someone also that likes to be in control, and I have the same type of mindset, and so creating that delineation between should I be doing this activity is such a huge thing, and I'm still dealing with that right now. Like I've hired for mowing my lawn, for example, I hired someone to mow my lawn because I hate doing it, and I know that it would probably take me 2 hours to do it. Whereby if someone has like a little riding mower, they can get it done in 30 minutes, and they like doing it. That's part of their business, so I've outsourced that. I'm actually working on trying to hire a VA right now, so I've created like a job description and outline, and I have all the the different tasks that I would like them to do and have PDFs and videos explaining it. So I'm getting to that point where it's starting to say, look, I'm going to hand off the tasks that don't generate income for my business, and that'll free me up to be able to go generate business, because that's my highest and best use. Like you said, if you're not going to pay someone, whatever your income goal is, $100, $200, $300 an hour is what you're trying to produce, then outsource whatever you can in order to free up time so that you can go generate business. So
with VAs, I'd give your listeners one tip. I've had now 3 VAs. The first 2 didn't work out. The third one's going really well. So if the first one, it's not always going to be a perfect match first time around. So be willing to, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? Just because the first one doesn't work out, that doesn't mean that VAs don't work. It just means it wasn't a good match. So keep going until you find the right one, and then you'll get into the rhythm and things will start working well, and you'll have a lot more time to make, more productive decisions and produce more results for yourself and for your family.
Sure.
Absolutely.
That's awesome. So kind of touching back on the previous experience that we were mentioning with you in Korea and elsewhere, how has that international experience helped the way you approach your current business today?
So I think it's made me more patient, and probably I wasn't patient enough when I was in Korea. But I think, again, when I reflect on the time that I had there and the things that used to frustrate me at the start that didn't frustrate me at the end, I realized that I did become a lot more patient about some of those cultural differences, which were, probably I come back, I've got the reverse culture shock, and I actually prefer the Korean way of doing a lot of things now versus the Australian way or the Western way. So But having gone through that experience the first time of seeing things done another way and had trouble accepting them, I'm a lot more accepting now when I come back here and just realize, you know what, there's just another way of doing things. It's not necessarily better or worse. It's just different. And that's the cultural context that I'm in. I think being in Korea as an expat, because Korea isn't an expat-heavy market, it gave me exposure to a lot of senior people that I wouldn't have had exposure to before. And that probably gave me some business maturity that I wouldn't have been able to acquire in the same number of years if I had stayed in Australia. I think doing business in Korea is challenging because it is a very different cultural context, to use that term again. But also, Korea is a market where outsourcing is not that common, or at least it's not the done thing like it is in Western markets. So your big players like your LGs or your Samsungs, they're far more likely to want to internalize and to give their business to their own business units or subsidiaries as opposed to outsource to a subject matter expert. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, and it's certainly the market is maturing and there's more service providers, but generally that's sort of, I think that is a fair statement to make. So that means it's just more challenging to convince others of your role in the market, and also with other clients who are there who are working for multinational companies, they would have the mindset of, well, hang on, why would we want to pay someone to do it when we can do it ourselves? So you've got to really prove the value that you can add. So there were a lot more challenges when it comes to winning business. It's not just, being better than your competitor, but it's being better than the alternative of doing it yourself, which is almost challenging the idea of, we're better than Samsung kind of thing. And who's better than Samsung? Not many companies, right? So these were some of the challenges that I had to deal with. And I think the other one is just the hierarchy. Like, Korea is a very hierarchical society. So I don't think any Korean person would disagree with me when I say that. And, if two little kids in Korea meet each other on the playground, one of the first things they'll ask each other is their age, so they know who's the boss, because the one who's older is the one who's the boss. And so there was so many different things to understand about Korean culture and my role within it, that, I learned a lot about myself, the way people interact, being more accepting, more patient. There was so many benefits that came to me from being there. So, I'm really, and obviously I met my wife as well. So that's a pretty good little bonus too.
Absolutely. That brings me, when I worked Central and South America, I experienced the same things and brought some of their cultures back and been utilizing them actually to this day. And I think it's actually beneficial to someone. I encourage people, if they get an opportunity to work outside of their own country, to go and to do that, because the experience and the growth, like you said, you had never matured and grown in the business standpoint if you just stayed right there in Melbourne and not went to Korea. So
yeah, it provides you a different context with which to view the world. Like, it gives you a different lens with which to approach your business problems. Because if you have a very siloed approach because of your general life experiences, and that's nothing wrong with that. It's just, if you don't have that broad perspective from having worked outside of the United States, or in your case, Australia, or, taking a position that's something that's completely out of your comfort zone, you won't necessarily have that perspective. And so I think what people can learn from what you've just said is that, regardless of what environment you're in, try to get outside your comfort zone a bit. Maybe take that position outside of your hometown. Maybe, dive into an industry that you may or may not have thought would be of interest to you, or, like you did, go to another country and take a position outside of your comfort zone. So,
or take the opportunity to take on more responsibility.
Yeah.
And even before maybe you think that you're ready, or before everyone else thinks you're ready, because if someone's offering you the opportunity, then somebody thinks you're ready, right? Mm-hmm. And if you've got that ambition to want to continue to move up, the only way that you'll find out if you can't do it is by doing it, right? So you may as well take the opportunity and do it, because that's the way that you grow, right? You'll make maybe a few little mistakes at the start, but the president is never president before he's president, right? So there's only so much preparation you can have before you step into the next role that you take in your career, and that's by doing the job.
Yeah. And speaking of that, like opportunity and taking a leap. So when you came back and you said you were working from JL over there in Melbourne, so you came back, what made you take the actual leap to go more into the entrepreneurship?
Yeah, it was a couple of things. So I think when I came back to Melbourne, I wasn't in a leadership role like I was in Korea. So that was a difference. And I was put into a role where it was more of a business development focus. And I guess I could feel that some people around me probably weren't as open to some of the ideas that I was sharing as perhaps people who were around me before were. And that's probably because I wasn't in that position of authority to sort of encourage people to sort of see things my way. So it sort of became clear to me that the leadership opportunities that I might have been looking for weren't materializing as quickly as I would like. But also I saw around me that I felt that there were people in leadership positions who didn't take their responsibilities seriously. And I also felt that there were people who needed leadership, guidance, mentorship that weren't getting it. So I saw this gap, this mismatch of needs and what is being provided to the industry. But also I saw some people who are being elevated into leadership positions who perhaps did take those responsibilities more seriously than other people who were in those positions, but they didn't have a lot of exposure to good quality leaders to help them be the leader that they wanted to be. So they were kind of a little bit lost. So I saw this confluence of things going on and I thought, this is an opportunity. And like I said, I saw that there were people running businesses in North America servicing the commercial real estate industry and also in Australia servicing the residential industry. And the commercial real estate industry is huge. So I felt that this was an opportunity. I felt that I had the, going back to my experience in Korea, the fact that I'd been in senior leadership positions meant that I had that credibility that I could point to as someone who's been experienced in leadership. And also I've got, I believe in the importance of emotional intelligence. And, it's not just about, cranking out 50 phone calls or connects a day. There's a lot of other things going on when it comes to how you can be successful in commercial real estate. These are things that I wanted to talk about, some of the mindset elements, their time management, your personal branding, your own leadership and qualities and attributes as a person. So that was really where I saw the opportunity. And then, I left JLL at the start of 2020, which was when coronavirus was all flaring up. And so, my services were no longer required there. And I realized that this is the time to start it. And I already had reserved things like the domain name and the handle on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and all these things. So it was all ready to go. It was just, who was going to sort of give me that push to make it happen. And it was sort of a bit of JLL and a bit of coronavirus that put me in this position where, okay, now's the time to actually do this. So, within a month of leaving JLL, I did the launch and launched that ebook that I mentioned before. And here we are.
Yeah, that's a great story, and again, I'm sure at the time, you've been thinking about this for a long period of time, and everyone goes through that transition point when they're at a previous position, and then they're thinking about going through the entrepreneurship route. I mean, I struggled with that for several years before actually jumping into the commercial real estate space. So that mindset shift that occurs. I mean, whether that's forced or whether that's just a leap. I think people everywhere, especially those who are looking to eventually start a business, are the ones who kind of struggle with it. And it is a natural thing. It really is. So the fact that you made that mindset shift and now you're starting to see what entrepreneurship's all about and you're starting to build a business that I believe will be very successful for you in the long term. It just shows the commitment you have to the industry. So
I think one way that I knew that my commitment was getting stronger was after sort of 4 or 5 months of starting the business, I stopped looking at the job ads, right? Mm-hmm. So when you when the idea of applying for a job completely goes out of your mind, I think there's one step is starting the business. The next step is being really committed to it and saying, okay, now I'm in on this. Like I'm sticking at this. I'm not just waiting until something better comes along. I'm going to actually make a real go of this. And that it took me a few months to get to that point as well, because when you start a business, it's slow. And I was starting it during coronavirus as well. And I didn't really know what I was doing, right? But I got there in the end, and we've had some progress. And thank you for your vote of confidence. I appreciate that. I hope it comes true. And I'm here for the long haul. So I'm here to realize that ambition.
It's not just a story, right? It's your journey, and you have so much further to go with this and in your entrepreneurship journey. So I think that your excitement, it shows already, and I know that you're going to go far because you can see the passion. So I'm excited to watch your career and your business just go up. So.
Oh, good. I'm trying to, not be too over the top for you. So I'm glad that it's still coming through.
Yeah. It's perfect. So if you could go back in time and you could give advice to your younger self, what would you do? If it could just be one or two things, you don't have to. What would be the?
So there's it would be to be a bit more to have more moderation in your life. So I think that I'm the sort of person that doesn't do things by halves, and that can work for me and it can work against me. And one thing that I did nearly 2 years ago is that I quit drinking, because I was the sort of person who was very excitable when I would get drunk. And I wasn't a daily drinker, but I was somebody who, once I got started, didn't really like to stop. And realizing that if perhaps I could have had some moderation in my life with that, I would love to be able to be a moderate drinker, but I just don't have that capability. So, but with some things like, working too hard or, whatever it is, you do need to try and have some balance and moderation. So I guess it would be to have more balance and moderation in my life to make sure that things don't sort of get the better of me, because that drive and that passion and that energy, if you channel it in the right way, it can be really powerful, but sometimes it can also, get a little bit of a life of its own and can go in the wrong directions. And then you've got to make sort of some tougher choices down the road.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Jeff Bezos actually said this phrase that I thought was very poignant. And it was there's no such thing as work-life balance, but there's work-life harmony. So there's going to be periods in your life where you're working, a sizable amount. And then there's going to be periods where, it's maybe not required as much. So, living within that harmony, and it's different for every person. There's like when you first get started in your business, I'm assuming it's going to be a lot of work, a lot of late nights trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And then at a certain point in time, as you start scaling, you start reaching your peak, or at least getting towards a more stabilized environment. Then it becomes a lot more now shifting focus towards other things within your life. And so, I always kind of had questions about that whole concept of work-life balance. But, I think that work-life harmony piece really illustrates, I think, more clearly what exactly people should strive to do. So
maybe the advice more purely is don't drink too much, but that might,
exactly. Yeah,
that might have been the advice.
That was the initial advice. Yeah.
No, that was great advice. I mean, there is such thing as a burnout phase of anyone, right? I mean, if you don't believe me, just try to work 72 hours straight and see what happens. You're not going to be productive. You're not going to move the needle barely, if any, at that point. So I think we've all gone through that. And I think a lot of people, even at our ages now, that still need to hear that, hey, you're working, 150 hours a week. Let's dial it back and spend some family time, or
it's a lot of times it's a cultural thing too. Like depending on the organization, sometimes there's an expectation of people that say, oh, you need to have your butt in the seat for a certain amount of time, which I never agreed with. I never really understood that concept. And, I think that more people are starting to realize that that's not the way to do things, and it's not the most productive way to do things either. So
it's sort of funny, like this, people talk about the silver linings of COVID-19, right? And in some ways it's that there is some more sort of flexibility of the way people work, but also people are more burnt out than ever. That seems like they're working harder than ever. So I don't think people have, it sort of seems to me like that COVID-19 in some ways has amplified some of the problems that exist in society, and that there's still more work to be done in that area of people having that balance, or having that harmony, as you say, or a bit more moderation in their lives.
Definitely, no, of course. So one of the things we like to ask near the tail end of our episode is to learn a little bit more about, the different books that were super impactful for you in your life. I mean, Jeff and I and really the audience are avid readers. And so we always like hearing recommendations from different people. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a real estate book. I mean, one of the most impactful books I ever read was called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. And he talked about, small incremental actions every single day add up to massive results. And that's one of the things that kind of changed the trajectory of my life back when I read it when I was 23 years old. I was wondering maybe if you could share one that was really impactful to you.
I can share a couple if that's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, one, I would say almost anything by Brian Tracy. Like Brian Tracy is probably my personal favorite when it comes to personal development and professional growth. He was the one that sort of got me introduced to this space more than 10 years ago. There was one in particular from him, which was I think it's No Excuses, about self-discipline. And, just understanding the importance of self-discipline, doing the things that need to be done even when you don't want to do them. That was a really powerful concept that spoke to me. So, I encourage your readers to, if they're not aware of who Brian Tracy is, he's getting on a bit now if you look at his videos, but he's still out there, still plugging away, and you go through his book. He's a prolific writer, and he's probably got 20, 30 books out there, and it really, you got to find what resonates for you, right? But his stuff really resonates with me. And I guess a couple on sort of, there's the classic book about how to relate with people, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I think that's required reading for anyone who works in commercial real estate. But a similar book that also I quite like, which is maybe less known, is called How to Talk to Anyone. And it's by a lady named with an L. I can't remember the name right now. Mm-hmm. But she talks about this idea of having a flooding smile. And maybe I was just like, giving people the smile, or sticky eyes is another sort of term that she has. And just these little sort of tactics that can help you build rapport with people. So I really like that one, and actually listened to the audiobook of that one. And just the way the woman's voice read the book was perfect in terms of what they were talking about. So that would be the ones that I would encourage people to take a look at.
Oh, definitely. I mean, even when you're imagine when you're talking to someone on the phone and you have, a smile on your face and you have energy, et cetera. I mean, it's a different conversation than, if you were hunched over and, you're kind of, not engaging in any way.
I worked in radio before I worked in commercial real estate, and my program director at the time, he says, you've got to smile because people can hear that smile, even if they can't see you. And that's a really good point.
It definitely resonates for sure. You could feel the vibe, I guess, through the microphone, through the speakers. So,
yeah.
So thank you. I want to start out with rounding this off. Darren, we really, really appreciate it. I learned a lot from you just by even your advice that you gave to your younger self. It's always nice to hear that from someone else. But we have a CRE treasure chest, and it's a repository of things that a lot of our guests have come on and gave us, like PDFs or electronic ebook or anything like that. And so we just wanted to know what you're willing to contribute to that and get to our listeners. So
I had another idea, but given we've talked about the ebook, I think I should put the ebook in there, right? So the 5 Ps of commercial real estate success. If you want to know more about those 5 Ps, I'll share that link with your treasure chest so people can get their hands on it. It's a really easy read, 15 minutes. And I hope that your listeners get some value from it.
Definitely. No, I'm sure they will. And again, I'm really thankful that we were able to get this going and have this talk, because I think there's a lot of people out there that are going to gain value from this message. And I think we did a great thing here today. So, well, first off, thank you so much, Darren. We really do appreciate everything that you do for the industry, and I'm really excited to see your growth going forward. Like, I really do think that you're going to be a big deal in your line of work, both in Australia and hopefully even around the world. So we're excited to see your growth over time. One thing I wanted to ask is, how can people get in contact with you if they want to learn more about your services, or just reach out for any questions?
So my website is cresuccess.co. Couldn't get .com. Don't know who has that, but I've got .co. So you can grab that one, or just Google CRE Success and you'll be able to find me. LinkedIn's the main channel I'm on. So connect with me on LinkedIn and look forward to sharing content and getting to know you further.
Definitely. No, I encourage you guys to do that too. That's actually how we connected, Darren and I. So definitely reach out to him on LinkedIn, and we'll include all the links that he referenced below in the show description. So if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll be in the description below. And if you're watching this on Apple Podcasts or listening to this on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, feel free to click the link below and it'll take you to his website. And, we'll even provide his LinkedIn page so you can add him on LinkedIn. So, well, thank you all so much for stopping by. If you guys are watching this on YouTube, we would really appreciate it if you could like and subscribe to the channel. It helps with the YouTube algorithm, ensures more and more people can hear this message. Additionally, if you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, really any podcast platform that you're listening on, We would really, really appreciate it if you could leave us a 5-star review. It helps spread the message, and we've been seeing some good growth as a result of you guys leaving reviews. So we really do appreciate everything that you do for us. And perfect. So we'll thanks again for stopping by, and we'll see you all next week.